Hello, I'm excited to welcome you to the IACLEA 2023 Global Campus Safety Series on Hate Crimes. I'm Paul Sell, Executive Director of IACLEA, and I am honored today to introduce our President, Chief John Ojiskova, for our opening remarks. Chief.
Thank you so much, Executive Director, Paul Sell. On behalf of the IACLEA Board of Directors, the IACLEA staff, and I want to welcome everyone to this very important session of IACLEA's global series on hate crime. Each year, approximately 20 million students are enrolled in universities and colleges across the United States. This translates to about 100 million students cycling through our nation's colleges and universities over the past 2 decades. Today's college and university campuses have a much higher representation of students from diverse backgrounds, including race, ethnicity, ancestry, immigration status, sexual orientation, and religion, way more than ever before. Many of our students find that as they arrive on campus, they are being exposed to diverse community for the very first time in their lives, with limited experience in doing so. As such, campus communities can be unique ground for breeding hate crimes incidents. At IACLEA, we worked very, very deeply with partners and members to create comprehensive diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. We've acknowledged challenges and actions. We've built trust and established reporting channels. We've developed community outreach and engagement teams across campuses. We've built awareness campaigns and training campus community members as well. And lastly, IACLEA and our members have collaborated with campus constituents, government agencies, and non-government organizations. We're thankful that you're able to join us here today as we all learn together to combat these horrific hate crimes that occur on our college campuses. With that being said, I want to introduce you to IACLEA's President-elect, my very good friend, Paul Dean. Paul Dean, take it away.
Thanks, John O. I'm out in the field, everybody, but I wanted to make sure that I spent a little time with you this morning because this is such an important topic, as you've heard from Paul Sell and President Ojiskova. Hate is permeating everything that we do. It's incumbent upon us as leaders in campus law enforcement, leaders in IACLEA, the leading campus voice in law enforcement, to take the lead on this. I'm so proud to be part of an organization that's not afraid to do that. The webinar you're going to hear today is going to be just the start to our conversations with that, and I hope you find it useful. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. I'll take it from here, and welcome to those who have seen it not robbery to get on and listen to this important information. Today's event will be recorded and hopefully provided as a resource for those who could not attend to review this information. We'll do our best to drop resources in the chat, but I know Carol, Ron, Noel, and Nigel will give additional information when we're done that can be sent out via email for all those who registered. Colleges and universities, in many instances, as you know, are small cities and mixtures of people from around the country and the world. It's extremely important to discuss the impact of hate-biased incidents occurring on our campuses around the country and world. All right? Our students are near and far from home. Over the past several years, we've seen recent reminders of these crimes, and unfortunately, very, very recently, we've seen some of these events. The question in the aftermath is, what will campus safety leaders and those managers do to keep our students safe? The parents will ask questions, the students, the faculty, and the staff. What can our campus public safety department do to make our communities safe and our members feel secure? Hello, my name is David Perry. I've had this pleasure to be your moderator for this important panel discussion. And as a lifelong IACLEA member and past president, I'm no stranger to this topic. Today, we're joined by some experts from around the globe who will discuss the current landscape and promising steps to move forward in preparedness and response. We're joined by campus safety leaders, federal partners, lifelong professionals in this work and in the anti-defamation field. Their impressive bios are included for your review. But I do want to give them just a few minutes to introduce themselves. Carol, you have to go first. We're stepping on your dinner time in Israel, so just please start us off.
No worries. Thank you so much, Steve Perry, and thank you, Mr. President. Hi, everybody, and it's so good to be with all of you today. Really a unique experience for me. So I'm Carol Nuriel, and I'm speaking with all of you from Israel, from a city called Modi'in, which is, for those of you who know Israel, between Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. I'm the director of the ADL Israel office. So as you know, ADL is a US-based Jewish organization that has 25 offices across the US, but also an office outside the United States here in Israel. We do a lot of what ADL does in the US in Israel. We give it, a local interpretation and a flavor, which is quite different than what's happening in the US, given the different context in which we live. But this is like big picture of what I do. And I'm also Senior Director for International Government and Community Engagement, which means that I also oversee our work in Europe, Latin America, and the Middle East, which is mostly with Jewish communities and also connected to the interaction that Jewish communities have with other communities in their own orbits. So thank you for having me and passing it on.
Thank you, Carol, so much. Ron, please go next. Unit Chief with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Ron? Ron, I think you're on mute, Ron. We're going to let Ron get off of mute in just a moment, and then Ron.
Can you guys hear me now?
We got you. Go ahead, sir.
All right. Sorry about that. I was clicking on the picture, and I guess
Ron,
that's
it was
not the
good.
mic
It was good stuff. It was good stuff. Go on, say it again. Give it back to us.
Okay. Well, good morning, and thanks for having me. As Mr. Perry said, my name is Ron Reed. I'm the Civil Rights Unit Chief at FBI headquarters in Washington, D.C. So my unit programs civil rights for the FBI. And so what we primarily do is make sure that the field offices has the resources, training and subject matter, and we provide the subject matter expertise they need to try to mitigate the civil rights threat. So outreach is one of the primary ways that we mitigate that threat. So I'm always very happy to participate in events like this one. Hate crimes are one of the FBI's top priorities. In fact, during fiscal year 2021, the FBI elevated hate crimes to what we call a national threat priority. What that means in practical terms is that hate crimes and all the other civil rights sub-programs for the FBI have received a great deal of additional resources and focus going forward. Hate crimes are such a priority for many reasons. Not primarily, but one of the chief reasons is that they have a devastating effect, not only just on the individual, but on entire communities, just as the offender intends to have. So we partner on a daily basis with our federal, state, local partners, absolutely, to include campus police. And we are always encouraging folks to notify, to report any incident that they may even think was hate motivated or bias motivated to law enforcement, to the FBI. We place such a great emphasis on reporting, because reporting is how we understand where we need to place our resources, and it's the way that we know about the cases, so we can investigate and convict the offenders and hold them accountable. So thank you so much for having me, and you're going to hear me harp on this reporting thing probably throughout this, because that is our main emphasis right now.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank
you so much. Nigel, across the pond, you're 5 hours ahead. Please jump in as Deputy Head of Security for the Imperial College. Give us a little brief intro.
Yes, good morning, everybody, Western time. Good afternoon, Carol, and everyone else, Eastern time. Yeah, my name's Nigel Ward. I sort of come with two hats on. My previous experience was I was 32 years in the Metropolitan Police Service in London, up to a senior level, and finishing, I was in the partnership section, which was very, very much linked to community engagement and hate crime. One of my biggest areas of sort of engagement was Golders Green, Stamford Hill, which I'm sure Carol's well aware. It's one of the biggest areas of the Jewish community, Europe, certainly Europe-wide. So hate crime was always very, very high on my agenda. In that time, it was more the prosecutional side of things, linked to the Criminal Justice Act and Sentencing Act. However, after 32 years of serving the police and the communities of London, I retired and realised I couldn't retire because I'd get very bored and just have a very pretty garden and nothing else to do. And then a unique opportunity came across to me to join Imperial College London and join a very different organisation within higher education. Currently, Imperial, obviously, it's in the top 10 of universities in the world, but we've got 20,000 students, 130 different countries represented. We are affected by worldwide events, and we have to react to the media, events, the world. It can be as little as a one-on-one situation, or it could be, as I think Ronald alluded to there, it could affect an entire community within the organisation. So hate crime to me is a massive thing. Certainly what I'm trying to do at Imperial, and I know UK-wide, is it's more the engagement prevention rather than the prosecution. Let's put an end to it rather than deal with the aftermath. So that's me. Thank you, Jono, Paul Sell, Paul Dean, and David. Thank you for inviting me, and I hope I can input something into this webinar from a UK-Europe perspective that's of value to others.
Thank you, Nigel. Last but not least, Noel, where it's a warm, steamy 48 degrees in Maine. Give us an introduction.
Hello, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here. Thank you very much, David, and hi, everybody. So my name is Noel March. I just completed a 40-year career in law enforcement. I served as a police chief for 3 universities during the course of that time, as well as having served in President Obama's administration as United States Marshal. Today, I direct the Maine Community Policing Institute with an emphasis on community engagement. We do that work nationally as well. My experience extends from the Ku Klux Klan to hate groups that might victimize those who identify as transgender, and working in the areas of identifying and preventing and educating on what hate incidents are versus hate crimes with the COPS office of late. So I just wanted to say thank you very much for IACLEA really putting the international into the work that we all do, we all share together, serving the needs of over 23,000 colleges and universities worldwide. Thank you.
Thank you, Noel. So let's get into it. This is what our attendees have tuned in for today. Let's start zinging some questions. Ron, you were up first. Do you like Chuck Woolery from the Love Connection, 2 and 2, 2 minutes and 2 seconds, but try to give the audience a little feel about where you stand with the recent incidents occurring in the US. What would you like to share with our viewers related to the FBI's efforts to detect and prevent these types of incidents?
Okay, well, thanks for the question. And I am unmuted, I know. So we are an intelligence-led law enforcement organization. So we're working hard every day to stay ahead of the incidents and spoil them before they happen. But admittedly, this is very difficult to do. So that's why, once again, reporting is very important. You see something, say something. Quite often, someone close to the offender has an idea that something is not right with that person and something is about to happen before it does. And we really lean on that reporting and getting that intelligence in. But one of the innovative thing, and a lot of times the hate crimes and domestic terrorism crimes go hand in hand. And these are a lot of the same people in same groups. So one of the innovative things that we've done over at the FBI, as everyone knows, we're a very large organization. So we make sure that we're talking to each other within the FBI. So we created the Domestic Terrorism Hate Crime Fusion Cell. So that's where FBI civil rights program managers and domestic terrorism program managers actually sit together. They meet with analysts, and we try to connect the dots. And because a lot of the same players are involved, like I just said, and through that coordination, we do everything that we can to try to stay ahead of the offenses. But like I said, admittedly, is very difficult to do.
It is a challenge, and we understand it. Josh has dropped a little reminder in the chat. We're going to have some opportunities for our attendees to put questions in there. So please give us some feedback as we go forward. But Nigel, many institutions who are on right now, my friend Grant Grundle down in Broward, Dana over at Rochester, we have students who are attending your institution. They're walking around on your campus right now. And as you said, you have students from more than 120 countries. How can you add to the impact of bias-based incidents that they have on your institution? Talk about the impact and what are you doing maybe in a little bit of prevention? Nigel, come off of mute.
I'm with you. Yeah, I mean, the impact is huge. As I say, it was mentioned earlier, it can be individual, it can be groups, it can be entire communities that are impacted upon. I mean, one of the biggest challenges we've had recently was with the COVID pandemic. We've got over 3,000 Chinese students, and that was in itself the catalyst for hate crime. Just people, even down to the way people were looking at them, they felt victimized. They felt like they had done something wrong. So it's not just individual, it's a vast problem. I mean, it can go from, as I say, from groups like that feeling humiliated simply for being from an individual community, all the way through to, and we've seen it, I'm sure you've seen it there as well, self-harm and suicide, misuse of drugs, misuse of alcohol, alienation. It's a massive problem that we, as individuals, we can't address it. It is a global issue that needs to be addressed. Sort of within higher education in the UK, we deal with it in a constructive and educational way, i.e., we try to deal with the offenders, shall we call them, and educate them. We can't punish them within higher education, but hopefully what we can do is sometimes there's cultural differences that actually they may not realise what they're doing. In the UK, obviously, hate crime per se is not a crime. It's we have criminal offences which, if it's linked to hate, then it changes the sentencing. The hate itself is not a crime. And sometimes we get situations with different communities where they use words that are unacceptable, which could purport to be hate crimes. And so education is a huge thing. But we've got so much to do. This has been going on for millennia. And we're just going to keep challenging, educate. But the big thing from my perspective is post-event, which I hate talking about, I hate being reactive, is the support that's given to victim survivors, and what we do for them.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more specifically about that when we go forward, but thank you, Nigel, for that piece. Carol, from your lens as the director for the ADL in Israel, how do you see the role of campus police, campus public safety departments working in preventing hate crimes?
So thank you so much, Ferry. One of the things that I want to mention before I talk about the campus issues is that, as somebody who's worked at the ADL for over 20 years, one of the things that I really like to do is really read about hate crimes, because ADL is really was really at the forefront of legislating hate crime legislation in the US. So I read an interesting research, really connected the dots for me because one of the things that we do is really talk about the philosophy of hate. And some researchers think that the term hate crimes is archaic and inaccurate, because what motivates people to act is not limited to hate, but also feelings of anger and fear and frustration. And I think that this really brings me to how we see things here in Israel in terms of what's happening on campus, because one of the things that I'm able to say confidently is that we don't see so much hate crimes on campus in Israel. We see more, and that goes back to Noel's sort of differentiation. We see more hate incidents, bias motivated incidents, and if I want to be more even precise, I would say politically motivated incidents, just because Israel is such a multicultural, multi-ethnic society that brings a lot of tensions when various groups have interactions, as happens everywhere. But in Israel, because everything in Israel is so politicized, what we see on campus is really incidents that are very much related to the politics of the country and to the to politics between groups. We see a lot of political protests on campus in Israel almost on a daily basis. It creates a lot of tension. I do want to say that one of the things that we've seen recently a lot, which brought to new legislation in Israel, is the issue of using and waving the Palestinian flag in protest on campus in Israel, which created a lot of controversy about, first of all, free speech and the ability of an individual to express his or her own, national aspirations, which brought to legislation, forbidding waving of the Palestinian flag, not only on campus in Israel, but everywhere in public space. So that's something that generated from campus, but really had broader implications on the Israeli society. I'll end with that, and then Chief Perry, happy to speak, generally about hate crime in Israel and the way we look at it from a broader perspective.
I promise to come back to you. I promise we're going to come back to that thought, but I got to get Noel. Noel, you just heard Carol's response, 40 years in the business. Where do you see yourself in this and helping some of our attendees as a leader of a campus public safety department? How should we relate to awareness and prevention? How do you feel about that?
Sure. Thank you, David. For the people who are participating in this webinar, this is our space. This is our space to make a difference, because we have a very defined community, regardless of the size of our institution or where it is. And the role that our public safety, security, campus police, university police, whatever our label is as the guardians of our community, is the space where we must insist that we are at that table and part of the discussion and the dialogue. Now, in the Q&A, Dana asks about, actually made comments on being seen and being accessible and building relationships of trust and being credible and approachable and being open to two-way communication, such that when the time comes, when there is a hate incident or something else is rearing its ugly head that is usually emotion-based, political-based, how you were raised, whatever it might be, those of us on this call know, not just this panel, but those of us who are tuning in know exactly what we're talking about because we're living with it. We must make sure that ourselves as leaders and insist and lead the way as leaders that our officers are a part of the campus community and never seen as apart from the campus community. We are among the most visible, personable, identifiable resources of protection and resource of protection, not just reacting, but when the worries and the concerns elevate, that we should be the ones, along with student affairs and residence life and the counseling center and the multicultural center and the other representatives, all the spokes in the wheel of community safety. We are one of those spokes. We are not the spoke. So insisting as leaders, to your point, David, what is our role? How do we see ourselves? We need to be the brokers of trust and accessibility, credibility, and approachability, such that those students, faculty, and staff who are within our care can feel that that they're in a place of genuine safety, and understanding that we won't ever be in a place of complete, total safety. Too many of our colleges and universities feel they're in a bubble of that isn't part of the real world. And we know, sadly, that is not the case. But I think happily, we can do more to make a difference in ensuring that the threads of community are tightly woven around our students.
I get it. Brokers of trust. Noel, you just crushed it. And I love Dana's comments, but I think as leaders, we also have to be mindful of the times and understand the community climate that we're in. Long gone, in David's opinion, long gone are the times where we just can walk through a residence hall and just feel like we can go anywhere we want in student spaces, right? We have to be mindful of the need to be appropriate and meet students where they are. And so for all of you, Nigel, you come off of mute and tell us, how important is it for the Campus Safety Agency, the department, to be a part of those prevention efforts? You know, and what does it look like? Some of our viewers may have more experience than others, but what does that prevention look like from the Campus Safety Department?
Well, first of all, David, it's essential. That's it. And I can only sort of go to Noel's comments about being a single spoke. It's a term we've used in the UK for a while, hub and spoke. The hub is the student. The spokes coming off it are every department, every part of faculty within the university that are there to ensure that that student who's paying rather a lot of money can come to university, have a great academic start in life, and feel as safe as physically possible. And again, I'll say what Noel said, it can never be absolutely safe, but it's essential that we move with that student every step of the way to ensure that, you know, we help them. How it looks, I mean, from security in the UK, because obviously we don't have police services within higher education, we just have security teams. So within our security teams, it's linking in with student support, it's the report and support tools that we give them, it's the one of the things I brought into Imperial College was a victim charter. So whether you have a pencil stolen, whether you're a victim of a hate crime, whether you're a victim of a sexual offence, your needs are dealt with by security to your needs. It's not just a case of pen and paper, yeah, filed, thank you very much. It's individuals are taken on board and every need that they have is addressed and is supported, because look, somebody that comes from America might need this bit of help, someone that comes from Belgium might need this bit of help, someone who comes from Angola is going to need a different bit of help, someone that comes from Jerusalem is going to need a different style of help. They all have different experiences with their own communities from their own countries of, if this happened there, how would I be treated? What we need to stress from our point of view in the UK is whatever happens to you, you're going to be supported, whether it be by the security team, whether it be by the residence team, whether it be by students support team. But I think what's integral is every one of those teams has to link in together to have the joined up approach, the same conversation, to ensure that that student, unfortunately, if they are a victim or a survivor, they get the same message. They're supported from cradle to grave. Whatever's happened, we will support you. Training, as I say, with our staff, there's mandatory training. I think every college and university in the UK has signed up to a quality, diversity and inclusion program.
Mhm.
So higher education within the UK is learning. But I think the biggest thing that I can say is we're not there. We are still learning. Things change on a daily basis. Things change on a global basis. Sometimes we can only be reactive, but it's putting our staff in the best position to react in the best possible way to support these young people who are the future of the world, to ensure that they get the best start in life.
Yep. Thank you, Nigel. Ron, get loose. I just want to make a comment that there's one thing that doesn't change. There's one word that you use, Nigel, that's very important, and that's individual. Every individual interaction matters, from campus security to campus police. And in this age of the perception of some about the profession, we can't squander those individual interactions. And so, Noel, how we build those bridges is leaving a positive memory marker, maybe with every individual interaction from the people we come in contact with. And maybe that will help you, Ron, with reporting. Maybe that will help us all with establishing that connection so people feel comfortable with the campus security authorities on campus to say, hey, I know John, I know President Ogochogba. He comes and talks to us on a regular basis, and not just when there's a call for service. So consider the number of formal calls for service, and then consider the informal interactions and how we can improve those. So Ron, I'm coming to you. You got your water, you're loose, you ready? Talk to me about how we can improve the reporting. I know you said it several times. So what can we do to help increase the success of this overall reporting that you need?
So thank you, David. One of the key things that I just heard, I think it was you said at the beginning of this this part of the webcast, is meeting the students where they are. So we've done a lot of things in my unit since I've taken over this unit, but one of the things that I'm most proud of that we've done is that we started it last year, actually fiscal year 2021, was that we had for the first time ever from the FBI, a paid media campaign where we used webcasts, we use podcasts, we use streaming as an anti-hate campaign, and try to get folks to report. We use billboards, bus wraps. We went completely out of the box for the FBI. And we spent nationally, we spent somewhere between $4 and $5 million on this campaign. And we saw an immediate spike in the reporting to our National Reporting Center. Nationwide. Now, from month to month, it went up and down, but it's very clear to us that advertising works, and doing things like that that's innovative and different is very important to do. In fact, it was so successful that this year we are bringing it back. And this time what we're going to do, because this last time we pushed it down from headquarters, but we allowed each field office to put their own twist on it. Our idea was let them do what would resonate in their area of responsibility, right? So quite naturally, most of that focus was at the headquarters in each one of those field offices, which was in the metropolitan areas mostly. So this time, what we're going to do is we're going to focus in the rural areas. And this is very important, because imagine being a kid that's LGBTQ and growing up in a little small town, right? So once again, so when we're preaching reporting, but we're thinking of and trying innovative ways to increase that. And what you said earlier, David, meeting folks, the kids, and just the communities where they are, because we are employed, we're working, right? They're our customers. So we have to meet them where they are.
Ron, that's perfect. And let's think of this generationally. Paul Sell, Paul Dean, these other folks, they're baby boomers, right? They read the newspaper, but we got to look at the generations that want to see the videos, want to see different modalities for communication. I'm just messing with them, but staying ahead and staying current. So it does resonate with people who need to get this information. So that's good to hear, thinking ahead. So let's change gears just for a minute. Let's talk about response. And that's the part that is sometimes challenging, because that means something has happened. It means something has happened locally on your campus, or it could have happened thousands of miles away, but it still has an impact on you. What does your message look like? What does it sound like? Do you have a say in the language that's shared with your campus community when something happens? You know, how do you choose when to make a statement? All those things about response. And so, Noel, I'm coming to you first. You've been in the business. Give us your take on what that response looks like close to home, and then what happens far away. And do you have a say in that over the years?
Thank you, David. So what Ron just said about outreach, communication, awareness, these are all ingredients of a strong prevention strategy. They're also, as I'm certainly Carol and ADL do this brilliantly, constant email blasts out to the various partners of various stakeholder groups. So communication in response to and reaction to an incident or a crime on our campus is absolutely crucial in the moment. I mean, it's almost a broken windows theory where you have to repair and state what is not going to be acceptable in this community of care, compassion, and collegial friendship and support among our faculty, staff, visitors, alumni, students, particularly. So having a strong relationship with your communications and marketing office, whoever it is that manages the messaging of the college or university, of the institution. And this is, again, another global principle, and that is people need the information. They need to know what's happened, replace rumor with fact, because we also know how quickly the arms and legs of rumors can get out of control and suddenly have a different issue to deal with among the sort of the anxiety riddled campus community members. And you want to minister to that and tend to that in a way that is clear, concise, and credible. Again, the relationships in place in advance of an incident bubbling up, that is absolutely, it's Nigel's word, crucial, that we have to have this in place. And frankly, we can do it better in a campus community. I've always marveled that here under one roof, if you will, I mean, figuratively speaking, we are all employed by the same institution that has the resources of counseling center and equal opportunity and LGBTQ resource and organizations, as well as multicultural resources. And we have our guardians as well. Communications and marketing, those who are forming the message and not just branding the institution and publicizing for more enrollment, also have to be part of the team that gets your message out as a public safety security team, staff leader, to reassure and frankly, and not to whitewash or to sugarcoat what has happened, to have a very clear message about the unacceptability of any such incident that makes any person in this community feel vulnerable, threatened, or unsafe. Because every single one of our constituents, our students, faculty, staff, and visitors, needs to and has the right to feel respected, protected, and safe. And it's our responsibility to, again, quarterback that, broker that trust that in this place, in this institution, our principles and our core values stand for individual rights, and we are responsible for that.
Thanks, Noel. Carol, you jumped in and said you wanted to add. Noel, Nigel, I'm coming to you, but Carol, give me your take on that, and then Nigel, you follow right behind her, please.
And thank you so much. Just taking it from where Noel just left it. The first word, I think, is just trust, and not only to let them feel that they're safe, but also that they're comfortable as they are with whom, with their own identity on campus. I would like to add a couple of other components that I think are very important in the way we respond to hate crimes on campus. So first of all, it's transparency and sharing information. The more they know about it, the more they know about the crimes. In terms of like how comprehensive it is, what's the scope of the phenomena on campus, whatever they need to know to feel that they are aware, really aware and informed about what's happening. The second is really sensitivity, the way we speak, the way the messaging is crafted, the words that we're using about the different communities that are being targeted is very, very important. So they feel that they're heard, they're listened to, and they're being aware of. I mean, who am I as a Jew being targeted on campus? As an LGBTQ, who am I? Are people listening to my identity and really understanding what it really means to be targeted on the basis of, my identity? And the last point that I want to make is really about the access. When you provide access to authorities, and this means not only sitting at an office, but really, as Nigel mentioned before, really reaching out and being there and being present and making yourself available on all sides. That is so important, because somebody might think, well, I was targeted, but maybe I should just, not say anything, not report it, just because, not make a big deal out of it, and it will come down. But that's not true, because that hurts other people that might be targeted and yourself. So make yourself present, because that might be, the shift, the turning point where a person says, okay, so I'm seeing that person and I can really report on that. We have experience with the Arab sector in Israel. And one of the things that the Israel police did was really having, building an authority for the Arab sector located in an Arab village, for them to have access, real access, in their own language, and something that they feel connected with. So the presence is very important. Thank you.
Yeah, Carol, and no, I couldn't agree more. For me, it's visibility in language. It's essential. As I said earlier, 127 countries we've got represented in our college alone in London, but nationally, and then looking at globally, the language has got to meet the target audience. It can't just be a web page saying, if you are a victim of A. That doesn't work. 1, do they find the web page? 2, do they recognize the web page? 3, do they recognize the language in it? This has got to be an ever molding sort of strategy to manage. And I think we've met every single person on the webinar so far has mentioned it, the individual. It's not about the community, it's not about the college, it's not about the university, it's not about the country, it's about that individual that has been affected by whatever the horrific incident, and then not only managing them, but what's the impact of that incident on that person going to be on the wider audience. And we know it is. It can be just a one-off incident, but the LGBTQ community, the transgender community, one incident can have that massive ripple effect that goes huge. I mean, I'll take it slightly out of higher education and go to several instances when I was in the police in London. Golders Green, we had a group of anti-Semitic incidents which were seen by the local community as not that big, and it was eggs being thrown at Hasidic Jews in Stamford Hill. But those incidents were so big with the ripple effect that they appeared in the Jewish news in Israel. So it can be perceived as by some people as a small incident somewhere, but have a massive impact elsewhere. And I think that's part of the educational piece, is getting people to realize what impact is. It's not about the individual. Individual is essential, but it's where it goes from there. And it may not be within your own community. It may go much bigger than that. And it's just, I think I've barked on about it quite a lot. This is going to be a never-ending subject. It's how we improve on a daily basis. I don't think we'll ever get to utopia. We'll never have that campus that's absolutely free of crime, absolutely no risk of hate crime, but it's how we deal with that individual. As I say, as long as we value every single person and treat them with dignity, respect, we can't go far wrong. I'm not in a utopian environment. Our communications team, I think Noel mentioned it, are very focused on increasing our student body. They're very focused on, we are X number in the world and X number in the UK. And they don't want me to start talking about, yeah, but we've had so many crimes linked to this because that's going to reputationally affect us. They're worried about the impact that may have on future registration. But as far as I'm concerned, people will come. But I want to make sure when they do come, they're safe.
It's safe. People will come if they have a sense of safety.
Yeah,
Faculty, staff,
absolutely.
and students. Absolutely right. And so, I heard you clear, Carol, Noel, Nigel. Information is power because it hurts when our officers don't know what's happening. So they have to be aware. Words matter. I hear you, Carol. They have to use the right vernacular so they're appropriate in their conversation and their response. And visibility, Noel, you got to be visible. You got to be present. The time is out for parking behind a garage or hiding, behind a convenience store. We have to be visible and out. And so, Carol, for our viewers who may want to know more specifically about things or how they're handled in Israel, how does the Israel law enforcement community deal with hate crimes? What are the mechanisms, generally speaking? What happens when something occurs?
So I think that the main challenge with what's happening in Israel is, first of all, we have legislation. We have hate crime legislation, which is pretty similar to the federal legislation in the US. But then we have an issue with enforcement, and it starts with the reporting system. So targets of hate crimes usually have less access to reporting. And that we're seeing that in the Arab sector mostly, but not only, also in the refugee / asylum seekers community in Israel. They have less access to law enforcement. They usually do not report hate crimes. So it starts with the problem of reporting and access. The second issue that we have is within the Israel. We only have one national police. We don't have many agencies of law enforcement. So the main problem is the recording and categorization of hate crime. Even if they're trying to classify hate crimes by target audiences, it doesn't work quite well. And I think that it's very hard to get the real data per group in Israel. So that's, when you don't have enough data, you don't really know how to tackle it. The last issue, which I think that the Israel police is handling very well, is more on the proactive outreach. There's an understanding that because of the multicultural nature of the Israeli society and this so many not only divides but also differences between communities, you have to have like special unique nuances in policing to each and every community. So what they're doing is really try to have police officers trained peer communities, understanding their own, cultural, social nuances, and really meet the needs of different communities. It doesn't always work well, so there are a lot of challenges. But at the same time, the fact that they're making the effort, I think, was, is a turning point in the trust that the Israeli society has in law enforcement. And I think it's more effective than what it used to be when we had like one doctrine of policing and hate crime address, and now it's a little bit different, and people report a little bit more hate crimes. But again, there's a long way to go.
Thank you, Carol. So Nigel, you said it's not a perfect world where you are. Do you see any differences in how the incidents are handled in the United States and covered by the media compared to your home?
I don't know if, I don't have a vast knowledge of how it's dealt with within the US, but I think harking on to Carol's comment there, it's about getting the people involved, the victims, survivors, it's getting them to have the trust to report, because without that, and it comes back to all the conversations we had, without the visibility, without the language, we don't get a true picture about what's going on, because we don't know who's affected. If they don't trust in the organizations there or to help them, if they don't trust us, they don't come to us, we don't have a true picture of what is actually happening, and therefore we're being disloyal to them, and we're not actually delivering what we want to do, which is to keep them safe and to make them enjoy their time at university or in any form of higher education. So I think we do an okay job, and that's as best I can say. We've got 1 million miles to go, and it'll never change, because hate crime isn't stagnant. We've seen it, whether it be far right groups, far left groups, Islamophobia, homophobia. That there's so much hate out there that it's ever evolving, and we've got to evolve with it. But to understand what the hate crimes are, we need to first understand the victims of those crimes, so we can manage their expectations, we can help them, we can nurture them, to then look forward to how can we prevent that in the future. But if we don't have those lines of communication, so we don't have that trust to get them to talk to us, and we've all got the same problems, we've all got multinational sort of hemispheres, and it's managing that, and it's getting that communication right across every community that we have, which is why it's such a massive target for us all. But it's then getting our communications team talking, getting our events teams talking, get everybody talking, and the hub and spoke approach. So I don't know if we're any better or any worse than elsewhere in the world, but I presume we've all got the same problems, but we've all got the same goals.
Same challenges with same opportunities. Noel, I'm gonna give you a quick comment, and then Ron and Carol, I'm coming to you for resources. Go ahead, Noel.
Thank you, David. We have to appreciate, for my colleagues on this call, on this webinar, we have to appreciate this is evolutionary change in thinking, not revolutionary. And we saw the same. See, Ron Reed as unit chief has a very tall order to encourage reporting. Ron, it's going to be the rest of your career and those who follow you to continue to advance that, because we saw this in policing, certainly in the United States, culturally, domestic violence, child abuse, elder abuse, even drunk driving. Those things took the longest time to come to the front, to be talked about as being unacceptable, and to have a change, a sea change, we call it, in how we as a society viewed, and we say it now, hate crime and hate incidents and bias as well. And we see a landscape of greater political divide, emotional, familial, religious, and so forth. We have to acknowledge that as college and university public safety leaders, to continue to advance and talk, promote, educate, communicate, such that those barriers come down and it becomes a more acceptable topic to address, understand, and embrace for prevention. Thanks very much, David.
Thank you, Noel. Ron and Carol. Ron from the lens of the FBI, Carol from maybe a not-for-profit. What resources are out there? What can we do? Ron, are you getting on a plane? Are you flying to our colleges and universities? Carol, what webinars are you conducting with different course groups on colleges and universities? These people who are in attendance need answers. So what type of training and resources can you throw on the table for us? Go ahead, Ron.
So one of our primary mandates in the Civil Rights Unit and for the Civil Rights Program, I know I mentioned outreach and reporting, but we have a national training initiative. And with that initiative, what we try to do is, so think about it like this. So there's the headquarters unit and all the folks that work with me and for me. We get out as much as we can and provide training to our state, local, federal partners, law enforcement partners, and NGOs, and out in the communities. But as a force multiplier, because we're small when you think of it that way, but there are 56 field offices, and every field office has a civil rights program. And a mandate for each of those programs is that they get out into the communities. We're just talking about how important it is to have those relationships prior to a critical incident, right? So they get out into a great way of doing that and establishing that is by getting out into the communities, the affected communities, what we call the at-risk communities, and provide them, in addition to providing law enforcement, with training. The trainings look a little different, right? When you're in a community than versus when you're training law enforcement. So when you're in a community, it looks more like awareness briefings. And because you're not trying to make the folks out there subject matter experts, what you're trying to do is to make them aware that you're here and you care, and this is how to get in contact with me if you have any problems. So what I would say to everyone out there, all the different organizations on the campuses, if you're not partnering with your local FBI office and your local law enforcement, please do that. They should be reaching out to you. But if they're not reaching out to you, you reach out to them, because it is their job to work with you and provide that training and awareness in the communities. Like I said, there are 56 different field offices. They each have what we call AOR, area of responsibility, and everything within those AOR is their area of responsibility, and they should be maximum effort providing training, awareness, and just connecting with the people we serve.
Thank you, Ron. Carol, jump in.
Thank you, David. So first of all, I encourage everybody to go on ADL's website, adl.org. We have a lot of information on hate crime for law enforcement. So a lot of lesson plans, like for example, analyzing hate crime statistics. So how do you look at statistics and how do you understand them? Also, you'll find there are a lot of blogs and op-eds and some campaigns that we've done on hate crimes. And I think that some of the information might be, a lot of information might be relevant for campuses, but specifically, we're doing a lot of training for law enforcement on extremism and hate crimes. So you can definitely, call or address your local ADL office to have that training. But also on campus, we have specific training for Jewish students, which is called Words to Action, which is aimed at not only empowering Jewish students in their own identity, but really provide tools to, to fight anti-Semitism, to, understand anti-Semitism, to be able to say, I was targeted because of anti-Semitism, because of my identity, and then how to deal with it, approach the right authorities, and on a variety of levels, how to address it personally. So a lot of resources, and ADL is at your service.
Right. I think it's important to put money in the bank, because there will be a time for it to have to be withdrawn. You want to put some equity into your community to show them, right, Nigel? You are listening to them. You are making efforts. Noel, you do attend those meetings. Your officers are aware of what's happening. You are appropriate, right, Carol? You're doing the right trainings, because there will come a time when something will occur. And if you don't have that equity invested, that pain is going to be a little bit longer involved. And what students want to see are receipts. You know what receipts are. When you go to Walmart somewhere, you get a receipt to show what you've done. Show some receipts. Ron, we want to show receipts that this training is happening. We want to show that we're leveraging these resources. So when an event occurs, we can say, no, we were working on this. President John Okojoba, we attended webinars. Paul Dean carried that message forward. Our association is ahead of the curve on this important issue. And so I hope our listeners heard communication. I hope they heard transparency. I hope they heard just being there and present to establish those relationships, because every individual interaction matters. You're going to hear me say that for the next few years, because that's a new national strategy from the Department of Justice for all of law enforcement. We have to re-engage people and change some of the other memories that they may have and stories with positive ones, and leaving them with a positive reminder. Josh, I think we're getting close to the end. I want to make sure I bring you on and we're timely with our viewers. We're going to send out some resources. There's additional things, Ron, that we didn't even get a chance to touch on from some of the partners you work with who do this important work, but we promise to stay consistent, and this is going to be an ongoing conversation, as Nigel said. We're just tipping this thing forward, inching it forward, but we have a lot more work to do. Josh, it's all yours.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Chief Perry, and thank you to all of our panelists for being with us today. And thank you to all of you for participating. If you have questions for our panelists that you are not able to ask, please email me at jbronson@iaclea.org. I do hope that you have found this webinar informative. Our next webinar in the Global Campus Safety Series will take place in March and cover campus safety strategies. Registration and more information will be posted shortly. We hope you will be able to join us as we'll have another great panel discussion for you. IACLEA runs many wonderful programs throughout the year, including our leadership institutes, the Executive Development Institute and the First Line Supervisor Institute that will be coming up in March, as well as our annual conference coming up in June. We hope you'll be able to join us for those events. Additional information and registration can be found at www.iaclea.org. Thank you again to everyone, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Take care, everyone.